Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast, episode number 2. You're listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. We've got all that's awesomely supernatural on TV, movies, books, games, and more. Your one-stop podcast for vampires, werewolves, mutants, and myths. And now here are your hosts, Archer, Sherry, and Ravenheart. Okay, I'm S.A. Archer, co-author and co-creator of The She. My co-host is Sherry Samin, actress and voice talent. And managing all the techie stuff and our game correspondent is S. Ravenheart, who is the other half of the She creation team. And this is the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. Today's topic is the Wolverine movie coming out this summer. Okay, so we were all given a chance to go look online. And did you get to watch the interview, Sherry?
Yes, I watched the interview and I watched the trailer you sent, and then you guys saw the one I saw. So yeah,
Right.
And I have a lot of questions. What's funny is the one I found, because he did show Japan, and then the interview one that we watched, they talked about that Japan. What do you call that? I don't know comic books all that well, but you know that saga.
Mm-hmm.
So
where he goes and becomes a samurai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought that's why I thought that was the real trailer. I mean, when I was like, oh, you're doing Japan. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it said it was fan-made on there. I don't think they have the official trailer out yet.
I know.
From what I have seen, there is no official trailer.
So we were finding a couple fan-made trailers.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think ours was actually somebody took one of the graphic, what do they call it? Like the graphic comic books.
Well, I noticed it had a German name. I was like, well, this looks German because of the way it was done.
Yeah.
You know, with this, I was like, oh, this looks German. Yeah, but it was called the Deutscher something. I forgot.
Yeah. So he I think he took the graphic comic book and did visuals with it and added sound effects. But so yeah, I don't think there's an official trailer yet. Otherwise it'd be on the website. That's what I'm thinking. If there was really an official trailer, they had it on the website.
Yeah, and what's funny is that James, remember I emailed you about James researching and everything, and it talked about that saga part in Japan and everything, and I found that really interesting. He was really getting into it. Okay, he had an Indian wife in Canada, and Sabretooth killed her, and I'm like, wait a minute, then I was like, what? It was like it became a soap opera. And then he went to Japan and he married somebody over there, but I forgot the woman's name. And then he had a son.
The Wolverine story, the comic book story, the actual story that they're kind of going off of is decades old. This story has been around for quite a while. So the uber fans of the X-Men and of Wolverine, they know all of this.
Yeah.
And I am one of them. And one thing that I wasn't sure I was going to like, but after seeing the interview, I can see where they're coming from. They're actually going out of chronological order.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about when they said everybody was gone. He's going to Japan with nobody. All the people he knew. And I'm like, wait a minute, how does that fit into the chronological order? Where are the X-Men?
In the comic book, he actually started... he started out in Canada. Sabretooth killed his wife. Then he went to Japan... basically became a samurai. Sometime after that, he joined the X-Men.
Oh, that's what I was thinking, because he was supposedly born in 1850, 1860, something like that. So I was sitting there trying to do the time thing, and I'm going, wouldn't the X-Men have come after Japan? That's why. So I guess the film version is switching it.
Yes.
Okay.
They know that they're going out of order, but they're hitting a point where, again, he has no one. The X-Men are either all dead or they have fallen apart.
Which is sad.
he has no one again, so I think it can fit. I think it'll work.
I think so. One of the things I liked about the interview was when he talked about, when Hugh Jackman was talking about, yeah, he's got the claws, and yeah, he's got the healing power, but his most important weapon is his rage, and how they're going to go more into his rage. I was like, that makes sense. I mean, I really like that take of Wolverine, to go back to his, scary Wolverine. The namesake, the Wolverine.
And we'll try and put a inbred that interview on our website with this podcast, so people can watch the interview too.
Yeah.
See what we're talking about.
At least put a link to it.
Yeah. Because I think, I'm thinking anybody who watches this knows all about Wolverine. Well, maybe, because I mean they can't know everything, but I like even if they didn't know some things, we're filling in the Japan links if they didn't know about Japan, because James didn't until he read it. So, but I wonder if they're gonna. I don't think they're putting the sun in the movie. It didn't sound like they were working. Well, they didn't say much, so I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't want to tell too much. I don't think he's gonna pop out a kid. During the movie.
But when he read that, I was like, he had a child. Oh my God. Child.
But you never know, honey. And that was interesting. I found when they were talking about who the bad guy is going to be, that there's not going to be
there's no clear-cut bad guy.
And I love that, because that goes with your guys' series of no good. You know what I mean? Like, who's good, who's bad. You know what I mean? And
it's all perspective.
Yes, which is everything, which is life. Yeah. I like that.
And it makes it.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. It makes it more of a mystery rather than a straight up just plain old action movie.
Yeah.
They had talked about, with all the other action movies that they're making for comic book characters, it's like, this is the bad guy. He was the bad guy from the get-go, and now it's just about making the CG more impressive each time, and it becomes a movie of the CG rather than a movie of the characters. It's like,
I like that when they stated that. I'm like, yes, exactly. It's just
because it gets to the point where you're watching Spider-Man and you're like, well, the actor maybe was in so many scenes, but a lot of this is just a CG guy swinging around. How much is really being acted?
Right.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but it starts to take me further away from the story when I'm going, wow, impressive CG, instead of, wow, I'm into the story.
Well, I like old movies anyway, and that was all about the actor and what they were saying to each other. There wasn't any, it was just all about plot and the characters and everything, like theater. I mean, I don't like too much special effect. I mean, I like it because it adds to it, but when it's all CG and
when it's more special effect than it is movie, then it can be a problem.
Though I did like Avatar.
You liked Avatar?
Yeah, you did. Well, we won't go into that right now. Would that be urban fantasy? I don't know. Would Avatar be urban fantasy?
I think that
I'd have to
falls
say
more
sci-fi.
Okay, never mind. Scratch that off. But I did like it. But the actors did act. That was kind of cool that they all acted out everything. They just CG'd their whole thing. Most of it.
And from the sound of the interview, the way the director was talking, it sounds like Hugh is doing a whole lot of the stunts himself. It's not CG with him doing all these ninja type moves.
Yeah.
He's actually going through and he's doing all the stunt work.
Yeah. I've heard that about him before in all his movies. He's really into doing as much stunts and everything himself. So that'll make it. And I love when he talked about like he wanted to bulk up and he wanted to show the rage on his physicality, not just internally. I'm like, that's Wolverine. Like you expect to see that, them like in the comic books, everything's cut in the veins and
So the director is James Mangold. I think I pronounced that right.
Yep.
I'm going to read some of the movies he's done and the actors he's worked with and see what you guys think about, knowing that he made those movies, what you think is going to be coming up in Wolverine, what you can expect.
Okay.
Right.
Some of the movies he's done is Girl Interrupted with Angelina Jolie and Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Copland with Sylvester Stallone. Walk the Line was with Joaquin Phoenix, where he played that musician.
Yeah. Johnny Cash.
Yeah. Night and Day, that had Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz.
Wow, I didn't realize he did all that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this movie. This next one, it's 3:10 to Yuma with Russell Crowe.
Oh, the war movie, yeah.
And then Kate and Leopold, that actually had Hugh Jackman as well as Meg Ryan. So he's done those movies. So knowing that.
I find that interesting because that is, now I didn't even know he did all those movies, but the fact that he's that varied, those are they're all different and interesting in their own way. I mean, Kate and Leopold, that's just a romantic comedy to me. I mean, and the other, that's cool that he did that. I mean, all the other ones, they're all different from each other. That is...
Yeah, like action comedy with Night and Day.
Yeah.
Some character study type stuff with The Walking the Line and Girl Interrupted. I think Copland might have been more actiony, but still had a lot of character work.
But I was just going to say, I think that's the uniting thing of all of them is he is very into the plot and the character. That seems he's not about the, all the special effects and all that. That seems. I mean, when I'm playing the movies, maybe 3:10 to Yuma, that was kind of cool. Wasn't really a war movie. I think that was the cowboy one with Christian Bale and Russell Crowe.
It had Russell Crowe in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking a war movie, but yeah, that one was pretty action packed, even though it was cowboy. I mean, but it was still character driven. So
as an actress, do you feel like you kind of know where he's going? What kind of a director he would be?
I like the fact that, I mean, from his other movies, and the fact that they're saying they're going to go into his weakness, which I find really interesting. You know what I mean? And they want to focus on his rage and how he goes there not giving crap about anybody.
That was something else in the interview. They said he basically, because of his healing factor, that he's facing immortality or potential immortality.
Yeah. Right.
And so he had this life before with his wife in Canada. He loses everything. He has the X-Men and feels like he's got a family there. He loses everything. And now, he's got this thing where like a vampire would have, where it's like, you're going to keep going on and everything you value is going to die, So, what does that mean to you, this, facing your own immortality when the world is not going to keep up with you?
Yeah, and I like the idea that they're delving into that and he's still got the rage. So they're delving into that human quality of him, but yet all that rage is more animalistic. So it's kind of interesting how they're going to put the human quality, the human emotion, you know what I mean, and mix that with the intense rage. I'm fascinated. Now I like that director even more that I've heard the other stuff he's done, so I can't wait.
And it'll be interesting with the Japanese samurai aspect, because, like you keep mentioning, the rage, and the samurai is kind of not that. Their values are completely not. Yeah. And they talk about that.
They were saying that in the interview that he comes to Japan and he doesn't have any aspect of the Japanese, any aspect of the samurai. They talked about, they're honor bound, um, and they are they defend the people, um,
Family based, I think you mentioned.
family based,
Yeah.
and he has none of that. And yet he falls into this. It's going to be interesting seeing how he goes from having none of that to working his way into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned weakness earlier. They did say that he finds his kryptonite.
Yes, because that was the thing I thought. All these different elements that they're putting into this movie sound so fascinating to me. I hope I'm not disappointed. You know, when you get built up on something, which is unfortunate, and then you have it so built up in your head that when you see it, you're like, oh, that's it, instead of just going and seeing it and being blown away.
I've done that.
Yes. So I'm hoping. It sounds like it's going to be good, and I like the other his other movies. What was the director's name? I forgot.
James Mangold.
Okay, Mangold. Okay. Yeah, I like his other movies, so I think I'm going to really like this one. So,
one thing that they mentioned that I wanted to discuss too is that they said that, in previous movies, Wolverine's had that I can't remember my past issue, and they're like, we've explored it, it's been done, we're moving on. It's not going to keep being about I can't remember who I am. They've done it and they're moving on. So it's good to know that they're looking and searching for fresh ground and not going to retell the stuff that they've gone over.
Yeah, and I like that. Yeah. I wanted to talk about, because this is just silly to me, but I know this is the film version of Wolverine. But I am so confused on the whole Wolverine Sabretooth thing from the previous films. I mean, because when you first see Sabretooth, he's covered in fur, and he's more animal than anything. And then when they go farther back, and he's his brother.
I think in the comic books they weren't brothers. They were just friends.
Well, in the comic books they weren't. Yeah, they weren't brothers. But in the film, they were brothers, and they grew up together, and he wasn't furry and hairy. And I guess that's X-Men evolving or whatever. He becomes furry. But it's like, why doesn't he remember? Why don't they remember each other as brothers? Even in the film. You know what I mean? He says he doesn't remember his past, but yet they don't seem to, I don't know. I just found that really confusing.
In the first X-Men movie, I think they were not thinking, Sabretooth was ever going to come back. So they made him like the comic book.
Made him a throwaway character who did not want to get thrown away. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it happens in our books all the time. So then when they went to do Wolverine in X-Men Origins, they decided, because Sabretooth and Wolverine have had a lot of comic book time together, and I think that they had them as friends. That they made them, like, instead of like brothers, make them actual brothers, and then they pulled back on some of the animalistic stuff because they wanted them to look more potentially like brothers rather than so completely different.
Doesn't X-Men have a thing where they like to do polarizing, like, good and bad? Like, you have a counterpart. I hate to say that, but like Wolverine is the technically good one, and then you got to have that counterbalance of, because Sabretooth had very similar qualities to him.
Yeah, they do that with like Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they weren't. He was more. Magneto was about magnetism and all that.
Well, I mean, like attitude,
leadership. They were. Professor X was the leader of the good, and Magneto was the leader of the bad. So they had different powers, but they were each other's rival, counterbalance, however you want to call it.
Yeah, and they were friends. I don't know if they were in the comic book, but I mean in the film that they were friends.
Yeah, I think they had been too.
Yeah, they were friends to begin with, and eventually they parted and went their separate ways.
Oh, okay. And then I had another question, since you're into Wolverine. in the other earlier films, Professor X knows everything. He can link up to anybody and anything he wants mentally. So if that's the case, I can't figure out why he had to have known Wolverine and everything about him the moment he met him, but didn't tell him anything about his past and didn't tell him who he was. Or, you know what I mean, when he came to the... So it's like, why, if you knew all that, why wouldn't he share?
Well, it's
I don't know if they
not so much that he can know everything. He can get into someone's mind, but if their mind is messed up, there could be barriers there that Professor X can't get past without harming the person.
I think they kind of played it off too, like Professor X knows, a certain amount, but how much is Wolverine going to accept hearing?
Right.
Like, this guy is coming at me with all this information. I don't know him.
Yeah.
It's freaking me out. I'm out of here.
That's true.
Kind of ease into it and just give him nuggets that he can digest, and bring him along. Like you would, if you have an animal and, he's kind of animalistic, you don't want to go, puppy dog, jump on him.
Yeah. Well, that's true, and he's Wolverine.
Yeah. So you will get clawed.
Yes.
Okay, well, that helped. Because these are all things popping in my head, because in the last X-Men movie they made, he came in as a cameo appearance, Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
So he met him then in the bar, and they told him to, off.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And so I'm sitting there going, well, he did meet him before he was messed up, I'm guessing. Well, I don't know. Maybe he was messed up even in that bar. I don't know. But,
Wolverine has been messed up for a very long time.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So in the comic book series, did he have memory loss?
I think he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
He did.
And I think it was one of those things where it's like, we haven't decided what his past is yet, so we're going to say he doesn't remember it so we don't have to figure it out.
I didn't know if that was something the film people created, his memory loss, or if that was in the comic book itself that he had. And was that Stryker guy, was that a film creation, or was that in the comic book?
I don't think Stryker, was he from the comics? I don't remember him from the comics.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I believe he was a film creation.
Okay, but was he like a film creation of something from a comic book?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so he never had that military past, where the memory loss and turning him into the Wolverine. That was all
I seem to remember that he did have those dog chains.
Yeah. He was in the military.
But I don't think that it was...
Well, he fought in the Civil War, and he fought in World War One.
Yeah.
But in that movie, they showed like Stryker giving him the claws, and I think he was born that way. I mean, in the comic book series, no.
He got the claws later, the metal.
Yeah.
He wasn't born.
Oh, he did.
He was born with the extreme healing ability. That was his born. That was the mutant power he was born with.
Okay.
I do remember later he was part of a military experiment that replaced his skeleton with adamantium.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't know how to pronounce that. I read that and I'm going, I don't know how to say that. Anti what?
Adamantium. Adamantium.
No, forget it. It's one of those words. It's one of those words I can't say. Okay.
Well, he was part of an experiment to replace his skeleton with that metal, which is pretty much indestructible. And in the experiment, he was part of the experiment because of his healing ability. They could replace someone else's skeleton with it, but their body wouldn't be able to take that trauma and they would die. With his extreme healing ability, his body could handle it. His body was healing at the moment it was being traumatized, so it was completely offsetting the injuries. And in the experiment, I don't remember exactly how, but somehow it's like his bones extended and he got the claws.
I thought they gave him the claws. Like, he wasn't born with claws in the
No.
comics, but they gave him claws intentionally as part of making him Weapon X.
Mm-hmm.
You might be right. I'm a little rusty on my comic book, and I apologize.
That's okay. Look at me. I only know the film version. I don't know. So is that how his memory loss happened? Was in that transformation stage? Like I think they did that in the movie anyway.
Yeah, they did do that in the movie, and I believe that's where he lost his memory in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think from the comic books, it was the process that made him lose his memory. That whole getting his
But that's not how
healing and all that stuff. But then in the movie, he survived that with his memory intact, and he goes through, fights everybody, and at the very end, they shoot him in the head, and they're like, he'll heal from that. He's like, yeah, but he can't heal memories. His brain will heal, but his memories won't come back. So that's where from the movie version, it was from that point that
I don't remember him getting shot in the head.
It was at the very end.
Actually, he was...
When he was running from Stryker? Or in the movie?
He was trying to protect the young ones, wasn't he? In the movie.
But I thought he had memory loss up at that point too, because he came into that mansion. He came into the X-Men school without knowing who the hell he was in the movie.
That's true.
So the origins happens before the first X-Men movie.
Yeah.
So he lost his memory some years before.
I can see why they wanted to put that behind him for the new Wolverine, because it gets kind of like confusing, especially the way that they're taking liberties with chronological order and everything. I mean,
it's already so tangled that they need to step away from that whole
tangling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
So since you haven't read the comic books, I don't know what you'll think about this, Sherry, but I was talking with Ravenheart, and originally in this movie they were going to bring in a character called Psylocke, who was really popular in the comic book series, who was kind of ninja. She was a telepath, but she was like, could do all kinds of ninja fighting. That they were going to bring her into this movie, but then they ended up writing her out of the script. So that is one character I would have really liked to have seen.
Yeah.
She was like a telepath, and she could make, she had like, the way they did it in the comic book, it was like she could make like a psychic sword. So like if she stabbed you in the head with her psychic sword, you're like, be like,
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope she was a good character.
She started out really sweet, and then went like Wolverine in a thong kind of a thing. In one of those, those outfits that they put all those comic book women in that.
He romanced her probably and dumped her. It was like a spurn woman, you know what I mean? No, I don't.
She was almost as as bad as Wolverine, so I can kind of see pulling her out, because it would have been like too much, like somebody too powerful, too much.
Yeah,
and you know what, take the focus off of him.
Yeah, right. If Hugh Jackman doesn't get too old, like he joked about being too old, he had to work out harder.
He's not getting any younger.
Yeah, by pulling that character out, that means that they have a storyline if they wanted to.
Do it later.
For another movie. It's almost like they were going, well, we got enough in this one, let's keep it simple. We can use her later. You know what I mean? We can use that character later, because that would be a really nice sequel to this one if they do that.
They mentioned too that I think is going to make the movie interesting is that they were going to do a lot of the really cool choreographed fight scenes, kind of in line with the Bourne movies. If you'd seen any of the Bourne movies.
Oh, I love the Bourne. I didn't see the last one. I think it's because it didn't have Matt Damon. So I didn't want to watch it. Yeah. But that kind of stuff, because that was good. That first Bourne movie, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, I can watch that over and over.
Me too. That was good. So it's going to be like that. That is awesome.
So, and even still without the excess CG and stuff, I read that the budget was going to be $100 million for the making of this movie. So,
That doesn't surprise me because it's a blockbuster, so they're probably expecting the, God knows, quadruple. No, probably more than that. Worldwide.
I'm thinking it's going to have some huge,
Oh
massive
my
sets.
gosh. Yeah. But $100 million on a film, it's like, doesn't it make you wonder, like, okay, there's catering. I mean, you're trying to think of, like, what could you spend $100 million on, Man.
Well, and then too, that's why movies, they have to make so many millions at the box office, or they're not successful. You're like, oh well, you made 27 million. How many did you want to make? Well, since I spent 100 million, I kind of wanted to make a little bit more.
Yeah, but those are the blockbusters. That's to me why they pick the same boring stories and retell them over and over again, because they know people will come see them.
Yeah.
It's the same, reworking the same story. But like the independent films, like Beasts of the Southern Wild, I won't go there. But that was a little tiny independent film. He hired non-actors, and it's at the Oscars now.
Oh, excellent.
See, I mean, he hired this guy, owned a donut shop, and I forgot the little girl was like 5, never acted before, and here he is at the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I see the blockbusters. I get it, but they put so much money into it, but they know they're going to make it. They know they're going to make all that money back.
That's one thing that the interview showed, at least. Well, in the interview, it's not something that anybody really says, but the interviewer is reading off questions from people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
From all different countries. So this has a following literally worldwide.
Yeah.
So making that 100 million back,
that'll be like,
I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem.
Mm-mm. I don't even think they're worried about that. I mean, that's just going to be 100 million will come the first day just from people who want to come see it, just to see what it is, and then everything else is profit. Everything else. So I know I'm going to see it no matter what. I'm going to see it.
Yeah, us too.
Even if somebody said it was horrible, I'm still going to see it because I want to see it.
Right.
It's Wolverine. It has Hugh Jackman being Wolverine. I doubt it can be horrible.
I know. It's Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Shirt comes off. Be sure in this podcast to put shirtless Hugh once in a while. So, this is entertainment. I mean, that boom right there.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we can do that, but we'll see.
Just put Hugh in my place. Just put a naked Hugh right here. Not naked
you with your voice.
Yeah. I think people would like that more.
Well, he is an awesome actor, and he is very good looking. But more than just that is, you take a picture of him and you take a comic book image of Wolverine, and it is like amazing. They are.
Yes.
They didn't know it at the time, but they were drawing him.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen the comic book version of Wolverine. Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
And he's got that character down. I mean, he really embodied that character. That's why
nobody else
age.
And nobody else would be able to nail Wolverine like he does.
Mm-hmm. Which is sad because he's getting older, like you said. And when he mentioned that, I was like, oh my God, that's true. He can only do it for so long. I mean, eventually, because he's not supposed to age. Wolverine. So I'm like, how long does he got?
One thing I saw on the Internet Movie Database when I was checking out the movie, they are going to have Silver Samurai, which I don't know a lot about from the comic books. He's supposed to be in the movie, and the actor that plays Silver Samurai is Will Yun Lee, who also played in the remake of Total Recall, Elektra, 007 Die Another Day, and the remake of the TV series Hawaii Five-0. So I don't know if you've seen any of those.
I think I know who you're talking about. I mean, I've seen the Die Another Day, James Bond, and I haven't really seen Hawaii Five-0, but I can see the guy. I've seen clippets of it, so I can kind of picture who that actor is. I don't know anything about that character though, but I do like the fact that they filmed most of it in Japan. I find that fascinating because also too, they brought in real Japanese stuntmen and real samurai. That's going to make it so much better. Yeah.
Very authentic.
Yes.
But I heard that because they were wanting to do it in Japan, that it got put off until now because of they had that tsunami and then they had that nuclear problem, So the movie kept getting put off and put off. I'm glad they finally made it.
I was wondering why, because they made mention to that being, they wanted to do it 2 years ago, but they didn't go into why. So now that's why. Okay. I thought it was Hugh Jackman's schedule, like he had too much.
I think that was also part of it, but a big part of it was everything going on in Japan.
That makes sense. I forgot about that tsunami. Wouldn't that? At least they weren't there when the tsunami hit. Wouldn't that
would have been?
Yeah.
Add that to the storyline. Footage of that. Oh my god!
And then Wolverine is standing on a hill in this great big wave.
Which I find it interesting that because I didn't know he became a samurai until I researched it, and you were saying that puts an interesting spin on his fighting. Because I've never really seen him do anything that I went, ooh, that's samurai.
Right.
With the claws. I've never really seen him do anything like that.
I think with Wolverine, he has his own style. He has picked up disciplines here and there. He's picked up different moves here and there, but he's always tweaked them for him.
Well, that makes sense. It's like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But you know what? Also, too, I'm thinking film, and film is, like you just said, it's out of the chronological order.
Yeah.
So in the film, he didn't know the samurai way yet, because in the film, he lost everything and then went to Japan. So that makes sense why they didn't show that yet. I find this interesting. That I can't wait to see how he fights like a samurai with claws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to do it. I look deformed when I do it, though.
Okay, so we probably should mention that the Wolverine is being filmed with 20th Century Fox Films and with Marvel Enterprises, of course, is doing that. And we are going to put a link to their website, which I have to scroll down here to find, is www.thewolverinemovie.com. So simple enough, if you want to go check out the interview. If we should hopefully have it on our site because it's on YouTube, so we can just embed it if they allow it. So, and then the release date is coming July of 2013. So
from what I've seen, they actually have a day set.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was going to change, so I didn't want to give the date. I was figuring to stay in July.
Exactly. You know what? Sometimes things happen and things get moved. But yeah.
That is true.
But I'm going to.
We could say.
When do you think we'll?
We could say at the moment the release date is this.
Yeah.
Did you remember the release date? The 20-something.
Yeah,
26th.
Yeah.
You guys know.
Because we're counting down.
I was up last night pretty late doing some research, so yeah, it's still pretty fresh in my mind.
That's true, because I watched the interview last night, so yeah.
You guys aren't Uber fans.
Yeah, but yeah,
not at all.
I was like, the 26th.
Don't look at my comic book collection.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why you're here. Well, you know a lot too. I mean, Archer, I was shocked. I didn't think you knew that much about the comic part.
Yeah, back in the 80s, I was reading the comics. But my big time for the X-Men comic books was the Mutant Massacre. Like leading up to that storyline, and then a little bit after, that was like, I thought, the epitome of the X-Men. So, I mean, if anybody has read the comic books, that was my big thing. I love that one.
I wonder why I never got into them. But
I forget, it was like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and somebody else, I forget who all, but they went through and they like killed just a ton of the mutant characters across the Marvel universe. And some like big name people got like their powers stripped and all kinds of craziness happened. And the X-Men themselves went from, this particular team that had been the team for so long, half of them gets taken out, and then they bring in a lot of these younger characters. So that was intense. and that's one of the things, like, you see, like, a lot of the other movies with the comic books, it's like, I know the story, and they told the story, and that was, I know what's going to happen, and this is going to, they're not really going to do anything too severe because they can't kill their guys, they're going to, Spider-Man's going to survive,
Superman's not going to die.
And to have a story where you're like, you go in feeling like they're not going to hurt the X-Men, these are the X-Men, and then they go and they, knock half of them out. It's like, whoa, it wakes you up,
Yes.
Like, they just went completely not the direction I thought they would go. I thought they'd never cross this line.
Yes, so, and I'm not going to delve into your series too much, but that's what I loved about your series, is I was like, oh, that one died. And, and then somebody else would go, and then they would die. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know who's going to go and when, and it was awesome because I didn't know who was going to get it. And that's, that's awesome. I'm like, you guys are surprising me because I didn't know who was staying and who was going and what was going to happen to them. It was like anything goes. And I love
that's one of the fun things with the stories that I like to explore was that. A lot of these stories, the person's like, if I could just do, this, if I could give my all, if I could just push past it, then I will succeed. Just give everything you got and you'll win. And, in our stories, it's like, I gave everything I got and I still lost.
I fell flat on my face and ow, that hurt.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, now what? This thing that I thought, the world cannot go on if this happens. Well, that happened. Life is still going on,
Yes. Which makes me wonder, and I'll throw this out at you guys, with that in mind, do you think the director would kill off Wolverine in this movie? I mean, in 3:10 to Yuma, Christian Bale died. I mean, though that's not a comic book hero. But I mean, that threw me. I wasn't expecting that character to get.
I don't think they'd ever risk getting rid of him.
I don't think they would kill him off. But from the sound of it, they're at least going
because
to
of
make
weakness.
you wonder. Yeah.
Well, because the way they really hinted at that weakness, I'm going.
Yeah.
They'll make you worry.
Yeah.
They're gonna make you worry. Yeah. I don't think they would kill him off,
yes,
but.
I didn't think some characters would die, and they died. So I'm just throwing that out there. You know what I mean? Like that would be the ultimate, or at least leave it open where you're not sure if he died or not. They could end it that way where you're not sure, and then you won't know until they plan another one. That would be an awesome way to end it. I think. Well, I'm not the director, but I mean, whatever his weakness is, to leave it to where you just don't know. I think that is better than tying it with a bow. I hate things that are tied up in a bow and given to you at the end, because I love Jane Austen, but she has this habit in every one of her novels to tie everything up in a bow, every character, and I'm like, I hate that. I would like, like some things to be left unsaid.
Cliffhangers.
Yes, or just not so much tied up. I just felt like she was like giving it to you know what I mean, like this is this, and everything ended happily, and that I love her, but I'm like so that would be awesome to me if Wolverine, if they did that, they ended it open where you don't know.
I think they left it kind of open with Origins, where they're like, well, he got hit in the head with a bullet, his memories are gone, and then they walk away. Like that was like the end of the movie.
I don't remember
Wasn't
that
it?
being the ending. That was the ending?
Wasn't it? Am I
don't
forgetting?
know.
Do you remember Ravenheart?
I feel like I need to look it up.
I don't remember at the moment, and I apologize.
None of us do. Man, we all got hit with the bullet because none of us remember. Oh my God. I'm sitting there going, I don't remember it ending that way. I swear I don't.
I knew it happened at least towards the end if it wasn't the last thing. But I thought that it was pretty much bang in the head and the bad guys walk away and Wolverine's laying there.
Okay, now I got to watch it, or I'm gonna look it up. Something. Now I got to know. It's one of those things. It's gonna bother me because it took my ending. It took my ending.
Yeah, we don't want it to be, the Lord of the Rings ending that took like 45 minutes. Did you see the last movie in the Lord of the Rings where it's like, oh, okay, here's the end. Everybody comes in. Frodo's in the bed. Everybody's alive. Yay. Oh, wait, no, we have to crown the king. Okay, they show everybody again. And then you're like, wait, that's not the ending. Okay, now.
Yes! I remember
they ended it like 4 times in a row.
Yes, because I remember being in a theater and I'm going, oh my gosh, I love this movie. I mean, but they're making me hate it by the end. I was like, okay, but you didn't want to get up and leave. You had to wait to the very end.
Right.
Dragging it on. Yes, I felt that too. And I was like, don't you hate that when movies do that? You think it ended and then it keeps going?
Yeah.
A couple movies have done that to me where I'm like, what? I thought it was over. Or it just ends.
Yeah, they're just running the credits, and you're like,
yeah,
wait.
Something happened, and all of a sudden just ends, and you're like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that too. I mean, I liked a cliffhanger, but when they just stop the movie, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
There's a sweet spot to endings. You bring things. You remind the audience of the original plot point, and then you kind of wrap up, and if you're going to leave any cliffhangers, you bring them back, you bring them to mind, and then you show the credits. You don't end it.
Just
you don't have like this this major chase scene where the good guys are just about getting run down by the bad guys, or they're just getting away or whatever, and you just flat stop. That's like that takes the emotions, like you're getting energized, you're getting excited, and then bam, you run into a wall.
Yeah.
And then also, like you said, you don't want to end it. Oh wait, that's not the end. That's not the end either. That's not the end.
Yeah.
Like then it's like, okay, you've ended it. You've hit the right spot to end it 4 times now.
It's called editing.
Why didn't you stop when you hit it right?
Mm-hmm. And usually they have the movie play for an audience first to see how it goes and tweak it where it needs to. That's why some of these movies, I'm like, did they not do a sample audience or have an editor, or you know what I mean? It's like they wanted to put everything that they filmed in, so they did. Like we have to use everything, you know.
The scene cost $10 million. It's going in the movie.
Exactly. Yes. Like, I slept with this person, so I got to get them in the movie or they'll kill me. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like they have to put every piece of footage in there. Yeah. I don't get that. Or I don't mind if they drag it on where you think it ends. I don't mind if they do that. If they then end it with a bang or end it really well, that wouldn't bother me. But to just drag it on like Lord of the Rings, and you're going for no reason. I mean, and then to just end it, you're like, really? Yeah.
Well, that brings up a thought. What did you guys think about the ending of the last X-Men movie, where they kind of left all these little cliffhanger and hints? You know, like, Magneto's lost his power, but ooh, look, he's starting to use his power again, and Professor X is dead, but this guy's got his memories or something, and this, his voice is coming out of this coma patient or something. What's that about? And
I forgot that one. I was thinking of the prequel one where they were all young. The last one that they did. Yeah. X-Men in the beginning or X-Men.
The First Class.
First Class. Right. Yeah, that's the one. But I can't remember the one before that.
It's the one where Phoenix, like, Jean Grey became the Phoenix, and she was like blasting the flesh off of Wolverine, and then he claws her in the heart.
He killed her. He had to kill her. Yeah. Which in the comic books, this is what James was reading. He's giving me all this info, but they said that was his fascination with Jean Grey, is because she looked like some girl he grew up with as a child. Logan. When Logan was a child, because his dad was a servant, or not a servant, but he worked on this guy's land. Anyway,
I hadn't heard that.
Well, I don't know. He was Googling stuff and reading it, and that's how he knew about the Indian wife in Canada that Sabretooth killed, and then went to Japan. But along those lines, he said he was paired. He had a little girl friend in Canada growing up, and she was a lot like Jean Grey. I think that's how it went. And she looked like her and everything. That's why he had this like love affair, like this fascination for the Jean Grey character. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, yeah.
I don't even remember him being that obsessed with her in the comic book.
Yeah, in the movie, it was like instantaneous, like, you know.
Yeah. Was she?
In the comic book, there was a little bit, but he held back on it. It was obvious to him and to her, but it wasn't in your face, and it was so much of an undertone that no one else ever really mentioned it.
Comic books do that, though, don't they? They don't come. It's not like a romance comic book. They give the undertone of it. They don't really come out and. I mean, unless it's like Superman and Lois Lane, then I mean, they pretty much.
Yeah. With Wolverine and Jean Grey, it was. She understood that Logan had feelings for her. She liked him as a friend, but that was it. And there was a little bit going on between Jean and I cannot remember.
Cyclops?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of his.
I don't remember his name.
Scott Summers.
Scott, thank you.
Oh gosh, yes. I didn't even remember that. Okay.
Once she said it, I remembered. Yeah, thank you. There was something going on between the two of them in the comics.
Yeah, they got married, and then it turned out it wasn't really her, and then they got back together.
Okay, I was like, what?
That's comic book twists for you.
Okay, you have to answer that. How was it not her? How was it not somebody pretended to be her?
So, like, the Phoenix that you see in the movies is not how it was in the comic books. Jean Grey saves the X-Men from like a solar flare or something, and in the process she's using her telekinesis to hold it back to protect them, but she can't protect herself. And in the process of her, sacrificing herself, this cosmic being known as the Phoenix swoops in, and Jean Grey is like moments from dying, and she puts her in a cocoon so her body can heal. And then she assumes the appearance and the memories of Jean Grey as she comes bursting forth in this flaming Phoenix, persona. And they think, well, she's just like evolved. Her mutant powers evolved. And she goes on to fall in love with Scott because she remembers Jean Grey's life. And they get married, and then Phoenix goes crazy, and they have to kill Phoenix, and they all feel really sad. But then Jean Grey comes back because she's healed, and then it turns out, well, she's not the one that married Scott. So then Scott and her have to kind of work it out again. But then Scott has gone and married somebody who looks exactly like Jean Grey, who I think was from Alaska. Her name was Maddie or something, and I forget what happens with her, but she ends up going away. And Jean Grey and Scott end up together again.
I feel like
Comic
I'm
book
taking,
craziness.
yes, I was just gonna say I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. My only thing to that whole thing, because it is a comic book, is why did that being feel the need to take on somebody's persona? Why they healed? Why not just let her heal? Why become her?
Yeah, they came back and explained that that's what happened, but I think originally in the storyline they were like, "This is Jean Grey," and then she went crazy, powerful,
Oh, it was just one of those
and dark, and they're like, "We have to get rid of her." And then like, you know what? I wish we could bring her back. You know what we could say?
Oh, it was like an afterthought. Like they heard, and then they tried to clean up why that happened.
I think that's what happened.
Oh, I was going to say, because I'm like, why would a being that came to heal you and protect you because you self-sacrificed yourself, then take your, okay, sucker, I'm going to take your personality.
I don't think it was.
Steal your life.
Quite like that. I think it was. It was more. I will pretend to be you so that your loved ones are not hurt by your absence.
That doesn't make sense because coma patients all the time. They could have just had her like in a coma.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
It's very much. I think comic books very much have sometimes will fall into that TV soap opera thing where it's like we're going along, we have to go, we have to have another story. You know, every day there's another story.
Yeah, if somebody comes back after being decapitated, and it's like,
like, you know, we want to bring this person back, but we kind of killed him in a really bad way. It turned out it wasn't a decapitation; it was just the flu.
Yeah, exactly. The head didn't really fall off and roll down a cliff. It was just the flu. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
and between now and then, I just happened to be in Europe, you know.
Yeah, or it was somebody else that we
randomly
thought was
left.
that. Yeah, or they didn't really die at all. It was somebody else that we all thought was that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't even them at all. I don't know how we even thought it was them. It was like a stranger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Gosh, that's crazy. Well, we veered a little on Wolverine, but I don't care because we're still in the realm of Marvel, which I want to know, what is the fascination with Canada? Is Marvel Comics from Canada? What is the deal?
I don't know.
Because, I mean, I've noticed that. It's like Canada, Canada.
Maybe for them, Canada is exotic.
Well, I haven't heard about Canadian mutants, but you know, maybe.
Yeah, I think Wolverine is the only Canadian mutant I know about.
Is it? I mean,
he's Canadian.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, you know, this reminds me really quick when I was working in the bar and I had a bunch of this isn't a joke. This really happened. A bunch of Canadians came into my bar, and I was asking where they're from because I got people from Ireland and England, and so I asked them. They said they were from someplace in Canada, and I go, "Funny, you don't look Canadian." As a joke, and they all laughed except for one guy, and he's like, What's that supposed to mean? I don't know what a Canadian supposed to be." And then all his friends had to fill him in that it was a joke, and then he got red, and he was really embarrassed, and I'm like, really, dude? Yeah, but I was like, you don't look Canadian. Oh man, I thought that was funny. Well, they all thought it was funny except for that one guy.
See, we don't understand the Canadian rage. You know, there's where Wolverine gets it from. It's because he's Canadian.
Yeah, that one guy that just lost it. And it was so funny because all his friends were going, "It was a joke. It's okay. It was a joke." They all got it, but except for that one guy. But yeah.
Yeah, well, Wolverine's got the whole bad boy thing going too. I think that's in the comic book. It wasn't just Jean Grey. It was a bunch of. I think he hooked up with every cool.
Oh, he did?
Chick in there, and I know he's kissed a bunch of them. He kissed Rogue at one point. He kissed Psylocke.
Wait, Rogue?
I don't know who. Well, she is not a child in the comic book.
I was like, hold up! He kissed Rogue. She was like 15.
Not in the comic book.
In the comic books, she was about the same age as him.
Yeah.
At least in appearance.
She lived as long as he did?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
He
Like,
looked,
she was like in her 20s.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He looked to be in his late 20s, early 30s, even though he was, how many more decades old.
Yeah. Okay.
So she in appearance, they were the same age.
In appearance, yeah. It's not like Hugh Hefner and his bride.
Yeah.
That's. Well, you know what? If you're 100 and something, does it matter if you look really good and the other person's 20? I don't know.
As long as you're over 21, or over 18.
But it's still kind of icky if you think about it. 100 and something years old with a 20.
Well, look, you have the vampires too. Vampires do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah, what I will debate reality in fantasy. I don't know why I do that. I keep telling James, I'm sitting there going, why do I keep doing that? Because I'm like, even though it's fantasy and vampires and werewolves and X-Men and all that, I'll still sit there and go, that gun doesn't shoot that way. Or, you know what I mean?
You're trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah, in a fantasy.
Yeah, but you're trying to make sense of it so that you can really get into the story.
I guess.
Yeah, like
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I do that too. That's why I love world building.
Okay.
Because I figure out the rules that govern this fantasy world. Just like there are rules in the real world, there are things you can and you cannot do, and you cannot cross that line. So, in world building, I figure out what can and cannot be done in the fantasy world, whether I'm writing it or whether somebody else is writing it, and then I try to make sure those lines are not crossed. If somebody else if I'm reading somebody else's stuff and they show these are the rules of this world, this is how this world works. Oh, but we crossed this line. Well, then now it's less believable. I can't get into the story as much because you said this was a rule, but you broke it. So are any of the rules that you have set up, are any of them safe? Can I trust you to stay on track, or are you simply going to cross lines just to cross lines?
Yeah. We will talk about Wolverine again as we get closer to the actual release date.
Oh, yeah.
And then after we actually see the movie, we'll have to have a big podcast powwow about the movie.
Yes. Bring in other people maybe, or have people's comments. We'll read people's comments. I don't know. Because don't you guys have a lot of people in your circle?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. I don't have anybody.
Getting there, but not yet.
I'm starting to get some Twitter people on our podcast account. So
yay!
We hope to have chat going and Twitter or something to let people ask questions.
Which, by the way, I opened a Twitter account really quick just to Twitter Whoopi Goldberg about your series. Because I'm like, why should I call her or write her a letter? I'm like, there's Twitter now, so I tweeted her. So
exactly.
I followed her and I tweeted her, and then I did Random House and I twittered them about the story and your website and stuff. So I'm just going to be obnoxious about it. Just whenever I find somebody, I'm like, you have to. And it sucks because you only got 30 characters. Must see. Must read. You know what I mean? I'm trying to keep make them want to read it, and yet down to this big. That was annoying.
You've been listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. Find us on the web at ultimateurbanfantasy.com. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list for updates and goodies. And hook up with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and YouTube. You can find out more about Archer and Ravenheart's The She series at shetouch.com. That's SIDHETOUCH.com. See you next time.